When was the last time you actually listened to radio? No, I'm not talking about the clips that you see trending on social media. I mean, really tuning in into a frequency. Do you still remember your favorite radio station's frequency? Or do you even remember your community radio station frequency? Truth be told, radio has been dead for the longest time, and it has a lot to do with how they treated radio. Radio used to be what we refer to as a theater of the mind, but now it's a playground for the popular. It's all about who has a huge following, who is known. People are there to build their brands and not necessarily to uphold the radio station, not to show the community the radio station, like how the radio station can be good for the community, but it is there for people to build their following, to actually be bigger than the radio station itself. The one thing that I actually respect about the presenters in the past is because they knew you were not bigger than the station. It is not about you. It is about your audience. So they didn't treat their sessions like a diary entry, because now it's either they talk too much about themselves or they go for personal stories just to make sure that it's juicy. And the worst thing is that now it can take up to 30 minutes before you even hear the frequency, which is something that was unheard of before. So they don't even uphold the values of the radio station and the rules and regulations of the radio station itself. And you know what's horrible? Some radio presenters cannot even do a proper link, and they've been there for years. They cannot do a link. Can you imagine? So you've been there and you're still failing to do a proper link. And you're one of the most famous people in South Africa, but you cannot do a link to save your life. But the one thing that I actually think killed radio is gatekeeping. Yes, I said it. There were a lot of good people, talented people who could have made it in radio, but they were blocked because of gatekeeping. And gatekeeping doesn't only happen in those community radio stations, but it happens in your commercial radio stations, in your national radio station. It happens everywhere. Like, I don't understand why in a community radio station, we'll just start with community radio station. I don't understand why you would have people who are not in the community to be the presenters. People who don't even live in the community. Like, how does that work? A majority of people who should be in a community radio station are people who are from that community because they understand the community. They are in that community. They live with the people. So it makes sense for a community radio station to actually uphold the community, to give opportunities to the youth of the community. And secondly, another problem that I find with radio stations, community radio station, is that people stay way too long in their seat. They stay way too long. Maybe this also has to do with the fact that since there's gatekeeping everywhere, it's hard to branch out and grow and go into another radio station, because if you leave this job, when are you going to get another presenting opportunity? But it is absolutely ridiculous to have people in a radio station, a community radio station, still stuck there for 5 years. I mean, 1 year already is a little bit long, but okay, we understand. 3 years? Come on. What is the problem here? It just goes to show that there is no growth, even from your side as a presenter, but also it shows that there is no growth in terms of the industry itself, because I understand why sometimes people are stuck in the same position. They don't have anywhere else to go. All the places are blocked. So gatekeeping is even the reason why people even started podcasts. It's what destroyed radio to the core, because since I cannot get in and I love this, I've been studying this craft, I might as well just have my own podcast and I can be able to do the things that radio did not allow me to do. And radio sometimes can be restrictive, which has both its pros and cons. But what I find with radio is that it helped to a certain degree, because now you find a lot of misogynist people in podcasts, especially the men. A lot of men who do podcasts are misogynist. So in radio, they were controlled. You couldn't just say anything or however you want to, and it offends the people. So there was that element of control, that element of respect that had to be followed. But now in podcasts, you have people who just spew whatever nonsense they want to. They can discriminate and they trend, and it has no effect on their money. But because radio was a space that actually held a lot of people back, it did not want certain people to be in the industry. And being cancelled in radio meant that you were unable to go to other radio stations as well because nobody could touch you. So I understand why podcasts ended up being the way to go. However, because of that, they didn't realize that, you know what, we're going to lose the people. By gatekeeping, they didn't realize that people are going to get, turned off. And when people get turned off, that means less viewership. When there's less viewership, the radio station will essentially die, which is where it's heading. And, I've also experienced gatekeeping in a community radio station. And I know this seems so strange, but I've experienced it. My friend has experienced it. Nompilo, I'm going to talk about you. I'm sorry, but I have to. So we met in a community radio station here in Durban. We were told to go to, there are auditions and we need to be there. But you know what was weird about this whole thing? For me, I went there before the auditions happened. So I dropped my demo and my CV. The same thing with Nompilo as well. She dropped her demo and her CV as well. But she wanted to be a producer. Anyways, we were all called. And on the day that we were called, we didn't know that on that day, everybody else, this thing has been on the community radio station for quite a while. So people have entered. Now, I'm fine. I don't mind competition. I was like, okay, let's just do it. Anyways, we were divided into groups of 3. So in those groups of 3, 2 people were presenters and then you had your producer. And I was the first one together with another guy. For the life of me, I cannot remember his name, but we were supposed to be presenters on that day and then have a producer, but then our producer showed up very late, so we ended up producing ourselves because when he eventually showed up, it was like 5 minutes before going on air. So we've already done everything, which I didn't mind. Like, I really didn't mind that he wasn't there. It wasn't a train smash for me because I was like, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do this. So anyways, we are the first ones to go on air. We did it the first week. We did it. I was amazing, if I may say so myself. We were able to work properly together. Of course, we had the guidance of another person who has been a presenter in that station for quite some time. But the point is, we were there and our show was amazing, right? And it had to go on for a couple of weeks. So it went on for a couple of weeks. And I was so competitive. I made sure that I listened every night at 1 a.m. I was there listening to that community radio station because I wanted to see, okay, so who's my competition? What's wrong here? Like, who do I need to look out for? What do I need to improve? Mind you, our show was one of the best ones. Mind you, we were the first ones to actually do it, to be on air. But tell me why. Why is it that the person who had the worst show, in fact, all the people who had the worst shows ended up being there? They ended up being hired. And we didn't get hired. I was so mad. And when I was mad, I thought that, okay, no, Sharp, it is what it is. Because even the way that they dropped us, it wasn't the proper way of actually saying, hey, you didn't make it. But rather, I don't even know what happened. Like, they were dragging us for more than a month, of which I didn't get. Like, why not just tell us before, okay, you've made it, you didn't make it. Why are you wasting our time? So they dragged us for a month. And the worst thing about this, it looked like an internship, but it wasn't an internship because till this day, I can never put that experience in my CV and say, hey, I was in this radio station for this amount of time. I cannot put it down as an internship or even as some sort of experience. So it was a total waste of time if you really look at it. Anyways, when they hired those people, I was mad. So now they already hired the people they need to drop us. And then they said, okay, we went and spoke to journalists. I don't even know. Hey, it was the weirdest thing I've ever went through. And I thought, okay, Sharp, that's it. I was a bit confused, but then I carried on still listening to the radio station because a part of me had hope because I was good. So I don't. Anyways, time goes by. When the time goes by, I'm still listening to this radio station. And then I noticed that my friend, they stole her idea. They stole her idea for a show because she had told me about it. She was like, hey, this is what I came up with. I wrote a proposal because we were talking about how we even found out about this. And I said, I don't know how I ended up with everybody else because when I came to drop my demo and CV, I didn't even know that there was this whole thing that they were planning. And she said the same thing. I want to be a producer, and this is my proposal. So she told me about it. That's how we even got close. So she told me about it. And when she told me about this idea, I was like, wow, this is a very good idea. And I was certain that she was going to get it. So it's either going to be me or her, or we're both going to get it. But anyways, I thought for sure, because this was a groundbreaking idea, especially for a community radio station. They stole her idea and they pushed her out. So she didn't become a presenter, a producer in that radio station. They didn't give her any sort of role, but they stole her idea. And I think till this day, they're still running that idea, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember I was listening when this whole thing was going on. I was listening after a while. It was like 2 months afterwards. I'm still listening to the radio station because, funny enough, I still had hope. So when I was listening, I noticed that, hey, there's a radio show and it sounds exactly like her idea. So I called her up. I'm like, wait, dude, you better listen to the radio station around this time. I think it sounds like your proposal, but I'm not too sure. But the thing is, I already was sure it definitely is her proposal. I was like, I think it is your proposal, but I'm not sure. Just listen so that you can verify. Anyways, she listened the following day because I wasn't sure whether it was just a once a week kind of thing or it was a 5-day thing. And she listened the next day when I told her. She was so hurt. She was so mad. She was so hurt. She was like, it definitely is my idea. These people stole my idea and they didn't even bother to hire me. So it brings me to the second thing. They steal ideas. That's what actually kills the radio station. They steal people's ideas and they don't credit the source. Not saying every radio station, but I've seen it happen in real time. So I know they do that. Anyway, she was so hurt, and that was the end of our journey with that radio station. Ideas were stolen. There was gatekeeping. Certain people got jobs, but not because they were good for the job, but simply because they knew somebody who knows somebody. I don't know, but it was just a whole weird thing. And also, what I think killed radio stations is that they don't nurture a caller. They don't cultivate their callers. Remember the time when you used to have like your super callers? Super caller was such a big thing. It was such a big thing. You were like another presenter of this station because here you are on this session. Now that they are used to you, they will hype you up. You're always the one calling. So it made you feel like you are that additional part of the family. But now I don't even know if they celebrate super callers the same way that they were celebrated in the past, because what people don't understand is that a super caller makes the show. They are the ones who are always listening. Like you can almost guarantee that Usman Bani is listening on this day. They are the number one fan of that show. So they bring that closeness of you and your audience. And what I realized as well, what killed radio shows is that people just treat it as diary sessions. They are there to build their profile, to build their numbers, and they tell us so much of their personal life. We don't really care about your personal life. You need to show me why this is important to me. I need to feel like I'm the only one listening, not to listen to your drama. Save that for your therapist, honestly. But now it is such a big thing in radio. A lot of people spend so much time talking about their issues, or even wanting their audience to tell the most gruesome stories about themselves. And I've noticed that in radio now, there's a lot of dead air. Like, sometimes you may think, oh, there's something wrong with your frequency, and there's just silence, which is something that usually never happened. But I've noticed that it happens more often now than in the past. Radio lost its integrity the day it valued the number of followers that a person has rather than raw talent. They lost it. And some presenters don't follow up. Like if there's an interesting story reported on the news, they don't follow up afterwards, which also gives me the impression that they actually don't even listen to the stations that they work for. And that's weird. That's just weird. Because if you are going to be in the station, at least be supportive and be in the know of what exactly is happening in most of the shows, if not all. So yeah. There are quite a few things that make radio, that actually killed radio. It killed it, and horribly so. Wait. So radio isn't like how it used to be. A lot of people just don't respect the medium. They don't respect the craft, you know. They are there just to build themselves, to build. They are bigger than the station itself. They hire a lot of their friends because even the producers seems to be way too friendly with the presenters. And a producer is very important. You're not supposed to be friends. But now it seems like even the producers are friends and fans of the presenters. So they can't even give proper feedback to the, to the presenters. I don't know, but there's quite a few things that actually killed radio. And radio used to be, people used to rely so much on the content itself. But now there's also a downfall to radio because in order to compete with podcast, it's now recorded. So people now care so much about how they look. We are forgetting the content and the importance of the audience. So people are just there, to build their profiles, not necessarily to build the community, to build the station. Some people don't even tell us what time it is up until it's a little bit late, up until you realize that, you know what, let me just check the time myself. Or when you hear your news bulletin, some people can't even link you to the news bulletin. So it's a mess. It's a whole mess. Anyways, radio is dead. By the way, I used to love radio. I felt like I was the only person listening to radio. And I miss how radio used to be. Remember, Eddie Makosonke Zondi used to make his audience feel. Remember how he used to nurture the caller when you call his reaction, especially if it's a woman, because the main audience of his show were women. So the way that he used to make the person feel, oh, I miss those days. Now people are just there in radio to build their profiles, to build their followings, to show off they are the star. Whereas in the past, the star of a radio show was the audience itself and not necessarily the presenter. But gone are those days. So radios are nothing more than just podcasts that happens to happen in a radio station. I don't know if that makes sense. But radio truly is dead. That's for sure. Anyways, that marks the end of today, It marks the end. So if you made it till the end, please like and subscribe. I need to actually do more of that. But I feel so weird when I ask people to like and subscribe. It feels like I'm saying, hey, you, what's that? Like this. Subscribe. It feels so... It doesn't feel like me. But then people keep on telling me that you need to remind your audience that, hey, like and subscribe. So please like and do subscribe. And I promise you there's more of this in the weeks to come. Just stay tuned. Yeah. Bye.